Hello and welcome to this video where the topic is spot removal in Adobe Camera Raw. My name's Barry Beckham. If you're a user of an SLR camera, then the spot removal tool in Adobe Camera Raw is one of those tools you need to become acquainted with. We use it to remove the dust marks that we often get in the skies of our images, but we can use it to remove other distractions too. We also have other tools in Photoshop such as the clone tool and the healing brushes. So I suppose one of the questions we may be asking here is, what's the best approach? Should we fix these problems in Photoshop or Adobe Camera Raw? As you will expect, I can't give you an absolute black and white answer. They're all superb tools. However, perhaps we could make a good argument that doing this work in Adobe Camera Raw does have some advantages. One of those is that we can repair more than one image at a time, and we'll demonstrate that in a moment. We can also do our spotting in Camera Raw, then change the tonal range of the area we're working in, and of course the repairs we've made are changed too. Everything blends in. Some dust spots can be very difficult to see, and therefore they're easy to miss. The spot removal tool in Adobe Camera Raw has an option to help us to see those difficult dust spots, and therefore we can fix them all. So dealing with them primarily in Camera Raw has some logic. What I tend to do myself is to fix all the most obvious spots and blemishes in Camera Raw, and I pick up any last minute bits and pieces that I may have missed in the main screen of Photoshop. We can look at cloning and the healing brushes a little bit later in Photoshop in a separate video. Here I'd like to stay within Adobe Camera Raw, and as you can see I've got an image opened up in Adobe Camera Raw, and it's got quite a number of dust spots in the sky. Even at this magnification you can see very many of them up on the top right. It's going to be far better to fix these dust spots if we zoom into the image, so the image is at least 100% magnified. Now we can do that pretty easily by going to the zoom tool and just double clicking. You'll see the value down at the bottom left corner. There we can see 100%. What I want to do though is to work up in the top right corner. So I've got the zoom tool selected at the moment, but I can either go to the top left of my toolbar and pick up the hand tool, but I can also just touch the space bar. When I do, the hand appears, so I can click and drag and move to the area of the image that I want to work on. And as you can see, we do have quite a number of dust spots here. Now these dust spots are caused by minute particles of dust that find their way into the body of the camera whenever we change lenses. But they're going to be far more visible when we shoot with wide-angle lenses, and I'm using a 16mm lens here, but it was set at 22, so quite wide. But we'll also see the dust marks a lot more when we have a small aperture, because then they're focused more into our image. And as you can see, I used f13, so my camera was well past the time when it needed a clean, but at least it gives us something good to demonstrate with. So let's begin by picking up the spot removal tool from the top of the screen. You can see the shortcut key is the letter B. When we do that, the panel on the right hand side changes. We have two options at the top. We have an option to heal, and I have to say that I almost use this 100% of the time, and we also have the opportunity to clone. Perhaps I can suggest the difference between these two is that the heal is an automatic setting, the clone is more manual. So in 99.9% of the cases, the healing brush is going to work fine for us. On the rare times that it doesn't, we can switch to the clone, and we're almost certain to get the result we're looking for. But here I'll stay with the heel option, and you'll also notice we can adjust the size of the brush. There's the size of my brush currently. I can increase the size with the slider, but that starts to get a little bit cumbersome, doesn't it? Every time we want to change the size we have to go over to the right. So use those square bracket keys just to the right of the letter P. The one on the left will take your brush size down, and I'm just tapping the key, and the one on the right will increase the size. The feather of the brush, well, most of the time I don't think it needs to be changed much at all. And the opacity I'm quite happy to leave at its maximum. I very rarely touch any of these controls at all. So let me show you the basic operation of this brush. First of all, I identify a spot and I click on it. Photoshop creates that red and white ring. That's the area we want to repair, and it uses the green and white ring to take pixels from that position and to blend them in here. Now we can see this a little more clearly if we turn off these little rings. Now we can do that by going down to the bottom and unticking the box that says Show Overlay, but the V key is much more convenient too. We can just turn them off with the touch of the key. So if I turn my overlay off, you can see I can still click on the spots and I can repair them. And in actual fact I find this is a nice way to work, because as I do this I can see instantly if the repair is meeting my expectations, and I have to say 99.9% of the time it does. So although we've got a very dirty sensor here and it's been made worse by the small aperture, you can see it's not actually the worst thing in the world to fix these spots. Yes, we can say it gets a little bit tedious when there's this many, but if this was a belter of an image that we couldn't afford to throw in the bin, then we know that we can fix things pretty easy. Notice that I can also click and drag, so we don't just have to use it as a straight circle. But in the few moments we've been talking, I've almost mopped up all of the spots in that top right corner. There's a few stragglers down here. So how do we see those spots that are difficult to see? Because there's nothing worse than producing an image and not until it's being viewed, maybe in a camera club, or worse, it's rolling off a printer which has cost you quite a bit of money in paper and ink, that you then spot more spots in the sky. Well, we have a visualize spots option right down at the bottom left of the panel on the right. Let's go and turn that on, and you can see we have a slider with this. So I can start to slide this up, and what I'm looking for is some evidence of little tiny donuts, and suddenly I can see that there's a few more dust spots in that particular area than I fully appreciated. There's one there, there's two side by side there, and you can see how Photoshop, or Adobe Camera Raw in this instance, gives us the opportunity to spot all of those and to fix them. Have a good look around the screen, because there's bound to be one or two that you miss. Don't worry too much if you do miss them, because Photoshop also has some superb tools to do the job. And of course the way I would work here is to retain that 100% magnification, touch the spacebar, scroll the image left or right depending which way I'm working, and then repair the little dust spots that are being shown to me in the sky. At some stage, of course, we need to say OK, and I'll take the little tick from the visualize spots and I'll hit Control 0 so we can see the image fully on screen. Now here I have a completely different image. Quite a storm was brewing here. If you look up at the top of the panel on the right, you can see this was shot with a 60mm lens. So not quite as wide as the previous one, so that's not going to show the dust spots very much. And also I used an aperture of 5.6, which is not going to focus the dust spots as finely as before. And I think I'm right in saying that since that picture was taken and this one, the camera has been cleaned, but we can see at least one dust spot up at the top left. So let me do the same as I did before. Let me double click the zoom tool to bring the image up to 100%. Let me hold the space bar and click and drag, and on this occasion we'll start on the left hand side, and straight away we can see an improvement. But if we go back and pick up the spot removal tool and look at the visualize spots, there we can see the main spot we're dealing with here, but we can possibly see just a hint of one just there. But you can see how easy they are to see when we turn on the visualize spots. But the reason I brought you into this picture is for a slightly different reason, because this one doesn't have too many spots, but as we move across the image, if we see any, then we can just give them a touch with the tool. There we have one there, one there. I tend to work through and do all of them just by looking at the image as it currently is being seen, and then just before I leave the image I'll take a quick look with the visualize spots turned on. But this tool doesn't only work well with those dust spots, it's also very effective for other jobs too. I'm going to suggest we've got one or two to deal with here. Now what I'd like to do here is to just touch the V key so you can see exactly what repairs I'm about to do. Remember, it's the equivalent of removing the little tick in the box at the bottom left of the panel on the right, show overlay. So touch the V key and the selection is removed, touch it again and it's replaced. But what I'd like to do is to zoom in. Over here we've got a white area. Now it's very useful to be able to zoom in while we've got the spot removal tool selected, and we can do that with a keyboard shortcut. The other alternative is you need to go up to the zoom tool and zoom in before you select the spot removal. But I've got the spot removal selected and now I want to zoom in. So the obvious way to do that, touch the control and the space bar and we can do just that. Just makes the repair much easier to see and to control. I'm going to make my brush slightly bigger than that white section, just a part of an old shed which is picking up the light. When I click here you can see the repair that's done, and I think if we zoomed out no one would ever notice that. But let's just touch the V key and see where Photoshop is taking the repair from. It's taking the repair from the tree. I'm not sure on this occasion that's the best place. So what we can do with these rings here, first of all I can go to the edge of them and make them bigger or smaller should I need to. I can also move them around, both the area that I'm going to repair but also the area I'm repairing from. So if I put my repair from over there, you can see that looks a lot better. We could possibly even pick an area like that even. Let's drag that down a little bit and up a little bit and try it out. But I think that probably was a nice repair that no one would ever notice. When I hit the V key and we hit Control 0 to fit the image on screen, we've got a pretty good repair there. Well, now we're on a roll. Let's zoom in again using the Control spacebar keys to those white posts because they're a bit obtrusive, I think. And all I'm going to do here is to click and draw down. That wasn't a very good straight draw, but I think it'll probably do it, and I hope you'll agree it has. Holding the spacebar, click and drag to the right to reveal the other one, and we can do the same here. What a great job it's done. Moving to the right using the spacebar technique again, click and drag. This area is probably the next to fix. What I'm going to do here, I think I may use the clone tool here because I'm going to clone from the trees above and try to keep that line more or less straight. So perhaps this is one of those times when if we switch to the clone, when we actually make our selection along here, you can see what I've done. If I touch the V key, you can see where the selection is coming from. You can see that Photoshop is pulling its repair from way over there. Is it looking okay? It doesn't look too bad. I think I could possibly do with a little bit down the bottom there, so I think what I could do is just drag it down a bit to get rid of that yellow bit, maybe a little more. I'll hit the V key, Control 0, and I think we've got another pretty good repair. Now we've got the difficult sign, but is it going to be that difficult? Probably not. Let's zoom in just as before. We'll do this in a couple of sections. I'll just paint over the top of that and allow Photoshop to do its job. Remember, I've still got the clone tool selected here, but it's done a pretty good job. Make my brush a bit smaller, paint down the legs of the sign, and we have a great repair to our image. Now, one of the other benefits of dealing with spots, blemishes, distractions in Adobe Camera Raw is we can apply those changes to a number of images. Here, as you can see, I brought you back to Photoshop's bridge, and a number of images I shot. These are all shot in register. In other words, they was shot from a tripod, and I was just changing the colours on the PC screen behind the glass. None of these have been worked in any way. I can select all of these. I'm going to use Shift Click to select the first and the last, and when I hit the Enter key, every one of these will be opened up into Adobe Camera Raw. Now you can see all of the thumbnails on the left hand side. I need to select them all. I need to be able to view one of them, so it doesn't matter which one we view, but I do need to select them all. So let's select this one so we can view that one, but then hit Control A. Control A is a universal keyboard shortcut to select all. Now I've got a couple of distractions here, but not that many. First of all, I've got a little bit of a smudge there. I was using an old monitor with a bit of a problem with it. So what I could do is pick up my spot removal tool, and I could, let me zoom in just a little bit, I could make an appropriate size brush here and just brush it into place. I think I'll switch, I've gone back to the heel, so we're back to healing rather than cloning. I've got a mark at the top left, probably got to do some cropping on these images, but I've got a mark on the top left. But also once you start looking at the glass very close, let me zoom in a bit more, you'll start to see all sorts of blemishes that you may want to remove. Things like this, this, and this. Now I can go around a series of images that I've selected on the left, and I can repair any of the problems that I feel they have. Sometimes with glass you get a little hair somewhere. See that little scratch down there, which may be obtrusive at some stage, little hair. No matter how careful you try to work, you are going to get these problems on your image. Let's pick up something which is pretty obvious. I think we've done most of the obvious ones, but there we have a couple of others. But what I'm effectively doing here is fixing all of these images. Oh, there's quite a long scratch. Let's see if we can fix that. I used a shift click method that time to just click there, hold the shift, click there, and it goes straight up in a straight line. Pretty quick and easy. Let's go across the edge of this glass and see how it fixes that. That did a pretty good job too. I think we've done enough here. What I can do now is click Done. Now nothing happens, nothing opens, but I know that I've fixed all of the problems on all of these glasses. So now if I wanted to take one and work it through as a single image, let me pick this one. I can open that into Camera Raw. If I pick up my spot removal tool, if we needed evidence that the little marks have been done, there they are. There are all the little anchor points which tell us where we've been at work. And the great thing is, If we did this to a number of images and then found that one of them didn't work so well, let's say this one, when we click it, it becomes live again, and I can either adjust it, change it, or in fact delete it. What I've done here is just zoomed into the top left of the screen. That's the part that had that big black mark. There's the repair that was done, so if I click it, it becomes live. If I hit the V key, I can hide the selection, but what I'll do, just to prove that we actually have got a result here, is just to delete it, and that's the little mark that we repaired. But I could have done 50 images in one go. So as a quick recap here, I find myself using the healing option rather than the clone for most of the time in Adobe Camera Raw. The size of my brush I tend to change using those square bracket keys on the right of the letter P, and they happen to be the same ones that work in Photoshop for brushes too, which is convenient. I very rarely adjust the feather, but if you find that the repair that's made is visible around the edges, then you can just step the feather up, but most of the time it blends them in pretty well, and the opacity I generally have at 100%. So going back to that little dot at the top, which I revealed again a little moment ago, let's just go to it. There you can see the difference actually between the feather and the solid ring. Perhaps if I move this up, you'll see it a little bit more positively. So you can see the solid area is going to be the inner ring. So here, if we wanted it to be nice and soft and feathered like that, we may want to make the inner ring slightly bigger, but here it's going to make a good repair because of the nature of the area we need to do that repair. It's pretty even. Not forgetting, of course, to visualize the spots, because sometimes, I don't know if you can see it, there's one there, look, so we could actually fix one or two of these others, but remember, we can do it with multiple images if we wish. Now, as you can see here, I've got a standard JPEG image opened up into Photoshop. Although this isn't a true RAW file, we can still use some of the tools in Camera Raw if we wish. You can see this one is quite dirty. This is one of the images I used to use to demonstrate the healing brushes, but I'm going to open this up into Camera Raw, and I do that via the filter, Camera Raw filter, and I can immediately pick up my spot removal tool. I've got the heal setting set here. Let's push the feather up just a little bit, not much. But what I'm going to do here is paint over all of those and see how it fixes them. Did a pretty good job. Let's touch the V key. Let's try these down here. Now it's taken the repair from there, which is not helping us because it's put an extra balloon in, so I'll just move it and say please take the repair from there, and we're done. One down the bottom here, or a few down the bottom. A couple here, I can deal with them in one go almost. I suppose the only thing we've got to be a little bit careful of is the fact that we don't try to repair an area with an area that's never been repaired, so we just effectively move spots from one place to another. But as you can see, we can come at this a little bit more vigorously, sometimes when we're working in the sky, as I am here. But just to demonstrate the power of this tool, maybe I've got one or two balloons here that I don't really need. I'm going to click on that one. It's took the repair from up here, so it's taking this balloon. Click the V key, you can see where the repair is coming from. I'll just move it slightly. Hit the V key again, and there we have it. I'll make my brush smaller with the bracket keys. I think I'll remove the yellow one, and I think I may even remove that one too. So now I've got a nice sweep of the balloons up to the right hand corner. Powerful tools in Adobe Camera Raw. Have you enjoyed this video? Of course you have. You've reached the end. Why not come along to my website and join my photographic forum, where you can get access to me and others that share your photographic passion.